Welcome back to At Your Service. This is a weekly live stream where we have conversations with seasoned service-based business owners. I am accompanied by another Brandon G, who is equally, if not more awesome than myself, and he's done some pretty incredible things. Yeah, BG, appreciate you being here.
Likewise, I appreciate the compliment. I remember the first time I met you, we were at this event. It was at this place in Greenwich, and it was the very beginning of the year. And everybody in the beginning of the year is always in the new year, new me type of thing, whether people admit it or not. And I thought it was so genius that these guys had this event that night because
Mm,
there were so many like-minded people in the room. And when we started talking, we had a mutual friend, and I already knew you were good people just based on who our mutual friend was.
mhm.
And I'm grateful that we've been able to continue this friendship over a year and a half later. And it's just been inspiring to see you chase after your goals and where you've been able to go, not only professionally, but also personally. And I'm really excited for this conversation today because you've had a very positive influence on my life.
Well, I really appreciate that, and the feeling is absolutely mutual. But yeah, so let's uh, really go into our conversation. So, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do for work?
Absolutely. So, my first career, I was in golf fitness. And when I was 20 years old, I was sitting in this mandatory workshop in school that I had to be at. I didn't want to be there. I had a party house my junior year at college, and that was the last place I wanted to be on a Wednesday evening, was at this mandatory workshop. But I'm so glad that I went there because as I was head down, not wanting to be there, this guy made me put my head up and wanted to be there. And he said
Mm,
that he wanted to be the best in the world at what he did. And all he did to do that was write down the top 10 people at what he wanted to be the best at. And then he went and learned, observed, shadowed, studied, and met all 10 of those people. So I ended up doing that shortly after that. And then 3 weeks after that guy spoke, I found myself on the phone with the number three guy on my list.
wow.
And I'm 20 years old at the time. This guy told me every single thing I needed to do to be successful in my field. 6 years later, I get voted top 50 in America for golf fitness trainers,
Wow.
by Golf Digest, and I'm on the same list as the guy who gave me the advice 6 years later. And I'm sharing that with you to say that that was something that I dreamt of, but I wasn't fulfilled.
Mm,
So I took a lot of time to think about, hey, what do I really want? And I kept doing that career. I kept that business going, but I took a lot of time to think about during that time, what do I really want? And I said, you know what? If I'm going to have to climb another mountain, I know it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, energy, and effort. So, what do I want that mountain to look like? And I said, you know what? I want that mountain to look like me climbing it with a massive group of people
yeah.
because I don't want to get to the top and be like, wow, this was all that this felt like. I said, I want the whole way up to the top. I want it to feel like a journey where I'm growing together with people so they can feel what it feels like to climb that mountain and go after something special. So that was the original vision. And what I did when I started that company in 2018, the concept in 2018, I actually started the LLC in 2019. I just started the core values,
Mm,
and I studied the most successful companies in the world: Amazon, Walmart, Pandora Jeweler, Starbucks. To me, everybody has different successful, but to me, I was like, those are companies that are servicing the masses.
mm,
And so I studied their core values. I came up with the core values of Warm Heart Life. And this was in 2018. And I would say the core values almost every day. It was a page long, the core values. And I would
wow.
say them almost every day. They were based on the acronym of CARE: create opportunities for yourself and others, active lifestyle, live that, 3 words in action, respect is earned, not just given, and then excel forward to get what it is you want. And so what ended up happening is I just had those principles instilled in my mind. And I was like, you know what? I want to turn this into a book. So the care principle became the first product that someone could actually buy. And then the first event happened towards the end of 2019, which
Wow.
was the musician showcase night. And I thought I was actually going to be in the business side of the music industry with Warm Heart Life.
Wow.
And I realized when the pandemic hit, there was other opportunities. So I started mentoring high school and college students. And then I did that for about 2 years, turned that into Skip College, Read This.
Nice.
And then my drive, my interest went to, hey, you know what? I'm ready to do stuff in person again. And I saw an opportunity to have an in-person event. And I did that October 2nd, 2021. And that gave a lot of direction on where to go with everything in the future. So that summer, I came up with the goal to have 10,000 student universities across 10 of the best cities in the United States. And the first thing I needed to do was to have an event. So I have this personal development event, get some positive people in the room. And then that led to my mentor saying, you're ready to start teaching a speaker school. And over 2.5 years later, I'll be now teaching my 21st speaker school.
Wow.
And yeah, we've done them in all across the country: Toronto, Chicago, California, Miami, New York City. And so, yeah, it's been an exciting run. Business and public to have to some entire country.
That's incredible. Yeah. When, when you hear people speak about what they do with their careers and what they do for work, you hear some people who have not a lot of clarity, but then on the flip side, you hear people who know exactly what they do, who their client avatar is, and where they want to go in the future. And, I think it's pretty obvious that you encompass um, the person who has a crystal clear idea of where they want to go and who they're serving, which I think is super important because it helps with your marketing efforts. It helps you with what you're doing on a day to day and how effective you are.
Yeah, and it's like how is someone gonna get what they want if they don't know what it is they want? How are you gonna go to um, Florida if you don't know you want to go to Florida? Like, you're living in New York, you're living in the Northeast. How in the heck are you gonna get to Florida if you don't know you want to go to Florida? It's the same thing with goals. It's like, how are you gonna get your dream job if you don't go after that? Like, if you don't say, hey, this is what I actually want. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I need to know exactly what I want. No, what you need to do is, if you don't know what you want, you take action to try and figure out what it is that you do want. So people see the clarity that I have in my professional life. So I like to give them the opposite side of life. So then you have your personal life. I'm not married. I don't have kids. That's okay to me. Like, I'm okay that that's not what's going on right now. But what I do is I try and take steps to move closer to that, to become a better person, to work on that. So I know what the goal is there too. I'm not there yet. I'm okay with that, because what I'm
Mhm.
doing is I'm working on becoming a better person.
For
I'm
sure.
working on becoming the person that will attract the dream significant other into my life. And so a lot of people think, like, when they see me in the business world, they're like, man, that guy's got to figure it out and stuff like it. No, I am figuring it out. I just know what I want. I know what I want. And what a lot of people don't know is it took me 3 years of the concept of Warm Heart Life to figure out the big vision. It took me 3 years of starting Warm Heart to be able to figure out the big vision. And I was testing out so many different things. I was talking to so many different people. I was okay that I didn't know. I
Right.
knew I wanted to grow together with people, and that helped shift the conversations to be able to get that clarity.
Mm.
Now, I still don't know how to get the dream significant other. I still don't know how to get the 10,000 student universities, but because I have those goals, I've been getting closer and closer and closer
Definitely.
every day, every week, every month, every year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, considering what you've accomplished in your professional life, there's zero doubt that you'll achieve what you want in your personal life. It's only a matter of time. And, obviously you have a lot to bring to the table. So you have to be, very, very mindful. And I'm sure you have an idea of who you want your significant other to be and the traits that they would possess and whatnot. So it'll
Yeah,
absolutely happen over time.
and I'm grateful to have really good mentors to be able to talk out these conversations with and these concepts with, because the thing is, one thing I learned from people who've had a lot of success is you're growing at such a fast rate, and sometimes it's hard to settle in a relationship unless there is unless there's alignment with that.
For sure.
And so, that's why I have a lot of respect for you and Lisa, because there's alignment with the growth. And
Yes,
so, one thing that I've always known about myself is, like, I have a goal and I want to grow at a fast rate. And I've been in a lot of relationships where sometimes they've been okay with settling down, and so it's one of those things. It's like, when you're growing so fast, there's things that are changing so fast. And so I'm okay being in this phase right now where just things are just changing very fast. Like every week, every month, every things are just changing rapidly. And like, I'm in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago, then I'm in Missouri, then I'm in LA, now I'm in Las Vegas right now. It's like there's a lot going on right now, and it's an exciting time. And the one thing that I will never let slip by, hopefully people hold me accountable if I do, is working small small daily actions to be able to achieve these goals, both personally and professionally. So
absolutely. Well, I will absolutely hold you accountable because now we speak consistently Monday evening every single week. So I will make sure to hold your feet to the fire about that. Yeah, no, you've done so much, so early on. Um, Obviously, I'm sure you've had your challenges when you first got started, but, from your perspective and from your experience, what were some of those challenges that you faced early on, and how did you kind of overcome that?
that's a great question. Well, I think I faced challenges today. um, yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I had was when I was younger and I was trying to figure out, like, is this really what I wanted to do? And I was
Mm,
around 25, 26, 27. And those years I was really trying to figure out, did I want to continue to do the golf fitness stuff? And so instead of saying I needed to make a decision right away, I said, you know what? I'm going to design this bucket list business around the time that I do have. And I'm thankful that I had studied Jim Rohn a lot, who always talks about the importance of building your wealth, your dream job on the side while you kept that revenue going. So one of the challenges I faced, there's always challenges and many of them, but one of them was trying to figure out that clarity. Do I stick with the career that I'm looked at as one of the best in the entire country, or do I shift things and really try and build something that I think can impact the entire world? And
definitely.
so that was a big challenge I faced. And for the first 3, 4 years of Warm Heart Life, people struggled to figure out what the name was. People struggled to figure out what the business was. And a lot of that is relying on me not promoting enough, not being clear enough with the message. And I was okay with that because I knew I needed to figure out the clarity on that. And so that was a big challenge that I faced. And another one was when I wanted to take my conference from, like, somewhat of a local thing to a national level, where I was partnering with the biggest theater in town, where I was bringing one of the top 10 highest paid comedians for many years to the conference. And so that was a big challenge. I mean, I would go to bed with my
Yeah.
heart beating at night, just like I didn't even want to look at my blood pressure because I didn't even want to think about what it was. But that was a big challenge. And the thing that has helped me out the most through that was I studied this book when I was younger, in my early 20s. It's called When I Stop Talking, You'll Know I'm Dead by 𝐤𝐳𝐤𝐼ntraub. And all that's in there is stories about persistence, from how he was able to take Elvis Presley on tour to to how he was able to go into producing movies, Karate Kid, and stuff like that. And
Wow.
then, yeah, just random stories of persistence all throughout that book. That those stories stick with me, and they've really helped me push through a lot of the challenges that come with just doing crazy stuff. Like, oh, why don't you had a successful speaker school, why don't you do the next one across the country? In Southern California. I was like, all right, so now we have to figure out how do you get people to come out there, and then how do you build a following out there? And yeah, I'm glad I took some of those risks and persisted through those challenges, because now I have a decent following out in Southern California. That would have never happened if it wasn't for that risk.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You obviously have to take risks if you want to grow. The negative part, obviously, about risks is that it might not work out, but I think there's a difference between calculated risks and uncalculated risks. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you have the knowledge base, if you have a network to support you, if you have the skills before you try to attack something, you'll have a higher likelihood of actually achieving it. So I think there's, a big sort of distinction, that should be made as well.
I agree.
Absolutely. And, with your business, with your speaker school and with your coaching, what makes you stand out from your competition?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the main thing is I don't really care about the competition. I just I care about the competition in the way where I look at them as an asset. I look at them, hey, they're getting more positive attention for what I do, what I believe a lot of people need. So I look at that as an asset. I look at, hey, what do they know that I don't know? And by doing that, I did this with my first career. I started building the confidence that there just wasn't many people who knew what I knew, who had been through the reps that I've been through. Like in
Right.
my first career, I remember on my application for the Golf Digest Top 50 list, I'm like, man, I worked for 3 people who were on that previous list. So,
Yeah.
and I had known what it took to be considered one of the best. And I remember I was one of the few people who had a book out in the field. I was one of the few people who had a PGA certification, PGA Golf Pro certification,
Wow.
and strength and conditioning specialist, and masters in exercise science. And it was just like very few people had those certifications, and very few people had the reps I had both in the golf and the fitness world. And so when I went into this business endeavor, I started doing the same thing. Like, what do these people know that I don't know? And so I started studying my mentor, who I looked at as being one of the best. And all of a sudden, I started learning all these things very quickly about stage presence, about execution of a goal, about what to wear, what not to wear, how to address this situation, how to address this situation. How do you sell from stage? How do you not sell from stage? How do you, how do you make people feel like they're not being sold to, but in a way where they're like, hey, I want to know more. And so you start learning from these successful people, and then all of a sudden that accelerates your growth. So one thing that I've realized over the last 6 years is very few people who have spent more time behind a camera as far as editing, editing film, looking at better ways to say stuff, and then also actually speaking in front of the camera, actually speaking in front of people, and then teaching. So it's hard to be able to get the reps that I've gotten from behind the lens and then actually coaching, but then actually doing. Like, I don't know many speaking coaches that do comedy. And
Yeah,
by doing comedy, I've become a 10 times better, not only speaker, but teacher. And
definitely.
so I started studying comedians because I realized they were working 10 times harder than public speakers.
Hmm.
And so, those are some of the things. It's like, it's almost like a confidence thing. Like, I don't have to say it
Right.
to know. It's like, man, you show me footage, I'll show you ways that it can significantly improve in the blink of an eye. And there's different things. Like, my mentor told me 2 years ago. He said, Brandon, you're getting pretty good at this. But he said, if you want to be great, you have to be able to take whatever anybody says to you, and you have to be able to say it in the snap of a finger in a way where you can say it either better or in a way where they can understand how to say what they just said better, like that. And so when you work on stuff like that for 2 years, it's like all of a sudden I can do your keynote like that right
Yeah,
in front of you. And then you're like, holy crap, how did you just do that? But people don't see the work and the repetition that has been put in the teaching, behind the scenes, in the editing, and then also in the presenting itself. So it's almost like a thing. I just don't know many people in my field who have done the different aspects of speaking that than me. And with business coaching, there's a lot of better business coaches than me. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of people who understand different concepts of business. The biggest thing with business coaching is I focus on the execution of goals. And
mm,
I feel like that's the easiest thing that can slip by. And with the business coaching, I'm okay with telling people, like, hey, yeah, that is probably the person you should reach out for that. That is probably the person you should reach out for that. And I focus more on, hey, making sure that we're executing on this goal versus telling them that I know every single thing about business.
for sure.
Because I don't. I would be an idiot to say that. But because of that, there's been some pretty cool success stories, and and that's been pretty cool to see. Like, one of my first success stories, they were in college. They were 21 years old when they started working with me. There was three of them. They were college buddies, and I mostly met with just the one, and they were making $2,000 to $5,000 a month in their college dorm room. And I posted this thing at the time. My goal was to help 21 people get to 21K a month, and they didn't have to pay till they got to 21K a month. And because that was the only way I knew how to get business coaching clients in 2020 and 2021. And long story short, they worked with me for 2 years, January 2021 to January 2023. January 2023, when we stopped working together, they did 380,000 in that month. So,
Wow.
yeah. So if you do the math, that's almost a $5 million run rate. And they by the end of 2023, they had three businesses, and I don't know the exact number, but we had a phone call at the end of the year, and they did between 5 to 10 million that year. And they were like 23, 24 years old. So,
That's 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 super astonishing to hear. Um,
and I was not the only person that helped them with the business. I
right.
focused on executing the goal and making sure we stayed focused on it. There was a lot of other people that helped them out with many different concepts. And I got another guy, he did almost 200,000 in, I think, the month of May. And I was with him when he was inside of a company, just didn't really like the job and was trying to figure out a way out. And you know, it's just one of those things. I'm not the only one he pays.
Right.
But what we do is we stay focused on the big vision, and we continue to try and create momentum going forward. And I don't know, he's going to get to the point where he's like, do I really want to keep working with Brandon, or do I not? And sometimes they look back and they're like, you know what, this guy's been there with me since the beginning, I want to stick with him. And sometimes they say, you know what, there's people who can help me take this from that 3 million mark to, because breakpoint one in business is 3 million. And I'm not the best person to take someone for breakpoint 2 to 3, 3 to the 8 million, 8 to 15 million is breakpoint 3. I'm not the best person for that. So if they want to keep working with me, they can keep working with me to stay focused and help execute on certain things. But they
Right.
probably should have different coaches in
Mhm.
that phase of business. So,
Absolutely. I also feel like it's important to, surround yourself with people who are significantly further ahead, but also to surround yourself with people who are only a few steps ahead of you, because they might be able to give advice that is a bit more practical to what you're
mhm.
doing on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's, an important.
Yeah, and listen, a billionaire, he or she can hire me for speaking right now. They're not going to hire me to help out with their business as far as
Right.
business consulting. And so that's growth that I've had, working with, I mean, I've worked with people. I don't know if I worked with a billionaire on speaking, but I've worked with very, very high end people
Yeah,
on speaking. And to me, I still get the rush because I just feel like speaking relates so much to business.
definitely.
So, and being able to start getting in these bigger meetings with these bigger companies, it's been cool. It's been cool because the cool part about speaking is it relates to sales, it relates to marketing, it relates to communication with employees, and it relates to one-on-one conversations, it relates to speaking in front of big crowds. There's just so many aspects of public speaking, and that's why I kind of fell in love with that aspect of business.
For sure. Yeah. One of the cool things about speaking and being able to articulate yourself well is being able to articulate abstract ideas and make them super simple, which is why communication is so important. And obviously, Warren Buffett talks about communication being such a crucial piece to what you do in business. Obviously, I think he's a good person to take advice from based on where he's gone in life. So I definitely agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. And, for both of your businesses, who would be your ideal client?
Well, my ideal client is someone with an open mind. It's one of those things. It's like I have a personal development business. I've spent the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years nerding out on personal development. Like
Mhm.
people say, what's your favorite thing to do? Honestly, one of my favorite things to do is study successful people.
Mm.
Like of course I like having fun, but a lot of times having fun to me is just being around people who are successful. Listen, on Monday, I'm going to a gala where the top baseball team in the country, a lot of their players are going to be there. Why do I buy that ticket? Because I want to be around people who are successful. And I know there's going to be a lot more successful people than the Yankees there.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. It's like I love success, and I'm not a billionaire yet, but you put me next to a billionaire, and we'll have so much in common because for the last 3 years, I believe that I'm building $1 million business or $1 billion business. Sorry. I
Mhm.
believe that I'm building $1 billion business for the last 3 years. So even though I'm not a billionaire yet, I feel like I think a lot like a billionaire.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things I can't relate to, but then there's a lot of things that I feel like I can relate to. And I think that's why I've been able to get a lot of very successful people in my life as mentors, and many have become friends now, because I think like that. Like
Definitely.
I believe I will have $1 billion business. Like I don't just say, like I believe
Mhm.
I will have $1 billion business. I believe I will have a lot of people say I will. I don't know. Like I don't know if I want to say I will have, like, because I don't know. I'm taking a shot at the most impactful education system in the world. For me to say that I'm for sure going to do that, that's just not me. Like people try to tell me to talk like that, and it's like, no, I believe that I can do that.
Mhm.
Am I? I don't know, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna
Definitely.
try, and so Yeah, that's one thing. But to answer the question, I just love being around people who are open-minded, and that 100% is my ideal client because, as I shared earlier, it's one of my biggest success stories was people who were 21 years old. The next guy I shared, I think he was 23 when he started working with me.
Wow.
Another one of my clients who went from working inside a job to over $1 million business. He was, I think, 26 when he started working with me. So I've had a lot of success with the younger people as far as building big businesses because they've typically brought the biggest open mind.
For sure.
And I have many older clients who I really appreciate and grateful for, and a lot of them have had successes too. But like these like big peaks, I've noticed that these younger kids, they're bringing more of an open mind and they're just hungry.
Right.
And I can't blame them, and I can't blame someone who's in their 40s who's maybe not going to take as big a risk. I can't, because they're in a different aspect of life, but then I meet people in their 60s sometimes. They're just like, you know what? I want to devote the rest of my life to going after this. I spent my whole life raising kids, making sure to provide for them. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I just want to give everything I have to go after this big goal. And so I do have clients like that too, which is just a lot of it. So I don't really care about the age. I don't really care about the gender. I don't really care about the business because, quite frankly, what I do, it applies to all businesses. And
Mhm.
the biggest thing is I just want someone who has an open mind.
Definitely. Yeah. It having an open mind and being coachable, obviously those are two very good traits when you're hiring a client. Irregardless, because a lot of what you need to do in the beginning of your business or even in the early stages, I'm sure is very transferable regardless of what industry you're in. So, awesome points there. Um, Wanted to also ask, ha- what do you think has been your secret to growing your business and to making sales and to generate more business? Like, what has been your secret and your strategy?
Do you want the like boring one, or do you want the like this is great perspective one?
Let's go with the great perspective.
So, as far as like, I think sales was part of that question.
Hmm.
Some of the best advice I heard years ago was if you really want to be able to scale a business and make sales, it's important to focus 90% of the time on getting attention and making sales.
Hmm.
So I used to be in a time for money when I was a personal trainer. It was like time for money, time for money. And my profit was really good with that business because I didn't have much expenses, but
Hmm.
my growth potential was not very good.
Right.
So when I heard that advice, that I think I heard that advice three or 4 years ago. That really helped me out a lot, and that's when I started having the conferences. I was like, I got to have something to sell. I got to get better at focusing on selling and promoting.
Definitely.
And so that was some of the best advice that I had there was, hey, spend 90% of your time on selling and promoting. So for business coaching, I have about 25 clients,
Wow.
and I meet with them once a week for a half hour. So if you do the math, that's like 12 and a half hours a week.
Yep.
And I don't really want to focus too much more of my time each week on coaching than that. So a lot of my other time is focused on promoting, getting on virtual coffees, connecting with people. Yes, getting on sales calls, going to networking events, going to things like this in Las Vegas. Um, this is that is a big part of my focus is being able to spend a lot of my, is the point to spend 90% of your time on getting business? I don't think that was the point. The point of that, when I learned that from someone, was to make sure that you're just not focusing on time for money and you're not just focusing on, okay, am I thinking too small? And I was thinking too small with my first business. And thinking that way allowed me to think a lot bigger. Like, oh, you can get 200 people in a room in one day, and that could lead to opportunities you never thought was possible. You can. Um, I'm about to have my biggest profiting speaking workshop, and
Nice.
we sold that out 2 months in advance,
Wow.
and the guy I'm teaching it with, we're both about to profit about 8 to 9 grand as long as everything goes through the way that it is. And I would have never thought that I could get that much for teaching 2 days. And,
Awesome.
but there's been a lot of the ones that I've lost money on. Like one of my conferences that was a success. Like I had a lot of people filled the room. I lost like almost 30 grand on, so it's one of those things. It's like, to get to this point, there's been a lot of money spent, time spent, energy spent, but because I started shifting my perspective, now I've been able to get opportunities where it's like, hey, I'm going to pay you to go out to Vegas to MC this event. It's like a lot of those opportunities wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for shifting that perspective that, hey, how can I focus 90% of my time on getting business instead of following through on the business?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And you gave a lot of sage advice. And I know one of the events that you're speaking about, A to B Con, last year, but it was an amazing event. And I think a lot of people.
And I made money last year off of it, not the year before.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I learned from those mistakes. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Absolutely. Um, just a few more questions and want to pivot these questions outside of your work. So, if you weren't in your current line of work, what else could you see yourself doing?
So I tell people all the time, like, because I do a lot of what I work on with people and speaking is coming up with catchy titles. And so I tell people all the time, I said I could be like, if I wasn't in speaking, I could probably be a professional copywriter.
Wow.
I just know I could. Like I've just worked on it for so many years. I just
Hmm.
like it's just like ChatGPT has nothing on me on like actually headlining titles.
Yeah.
ChatGPT has me beat on a lot of things, but as far as that, there's certain things that ChatGPT just can't beat at this point in life with the amount of reps I've had on that.
Agreed.
Um, in a couple of years, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe ChatGPT will catch up. So I always kind of joke I could be a professional copywriter. I love marketing, but honestly, if I wasn't doing what I was doing now, and I was starting all over, and I didn't really know what I was passionate about or whatever, I would have got into real estate at a young age, but actually studying deals. I'm not even talking about investing, because one thing I learned from my real estate mentor is that, and you know this better than anybody, is that if you can find the right deals, you'll find the money. And so I would have probably started, if I knew what I knew now, I probably would have started studying real estate deals 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And then I would have been interning for some of the top investors
Hmm.
in the country, just so I could learn.
For
And
sure.
I probably would have been worth 10 to 20 million at the age I'm at now, but I don't regret that. Real estate's a needs-based business,
Yep.
and it's just everywhere. So if you can understand how to find the right deals, you have one of the most valuable assets that you could possibly develop. And so, um, if I was to go back, that is probably what I would have did. But it's easy for someone to say that now, and I have no, like, I don't regret that. But just knowing what I know now, that's
For
probably what
sure.
I would have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when you mentioned real estate and if you find a great deal, you'll find the money. I think that's true to a certain extent. Wish it was a little bit more true in some of the deals that I've pursued and some of the capital that I've raised, it's still, it's still difficult, even if there is a great deal. But um, to your point too, if it's just like a home run deal, then it'll be easier to find capital. And
But to your point there's a lot of work that goes into what you do.
yeah,
There's a lot of time behind the scenes that people aren't seeing. And that's what like, it sounds like an easy thing, but this is why I say that. I bought a course from from a billionaire in real estate, and I started doing exactly what he was saying. And what happened? I started to realize if I wanted to do this, it was going to have to be a full-time job,
for
and
sure.
or at least full-time on this. Like I got to the point where I was like, I'm going to have to spend 20 to 30 hours a week on top of how I'm making, on top of my fitness business. I'm going to have to spend 20 to 30 hours a week for probably 2 to 3 years
Mm,
before I can do this full time. And but then I realized, I was like, you know what? I could just, I'm more passionate about my business. So I'm going to focus on my business, and then I'm going to focus on developing relationships with real estate people like yourself. So when the business does have the excessive cash flow, now I have trusted resources. I have people who are doing the vetting to find the right deals, and then I could just give the money to them so that we can make money together.
for
And
sure.
so but I pursued it, and I saw how much work went into it.
Yeah.
Obviously not to the extent that you have, but I saw the beginning phases that was taught by a billionaire, and I did it for quite some time. And I realized how much work went into it. But then I realized the reason why I said I would, that's what I would have done at 17, 18, knowing what I know now, is because I worked really hard in the golf business, but I was working really hard on servicing people. So if I could work really hard in the real estate business on figuring out how to acquire um, a $100 million property,
Definitely.
then I could figure out how to make a lot more money. And then if I could make a lot more money, I would be able to have a little bit more freedom with certain things. So, um, like what you do is no joke, and you're learning more and more how to find the better deals. You're learning more and more what the top investors want. And that's part of the process. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, it's certainly not easy, and you learn something new every single day. And if you think you have everything figured out, you are sorely mistaken. But that's, I think, one of the coolest parts about, you know, tr- trying something where you don't have all of the information, being able to learn every single day and being a student of life, I think is just one of the most valuable traits that a person can have, much like yourself.
Yeah, and I,
Um,
I think just to touch on the great question you asked about, like, what do you attribute to your success in sales or in business or stuff like that? I have an immense amount of curiosity. Like if
mm,
something isn't working, I'm trying to figure out why that's not working, and I'm not afraid to ask. And I got to credit Jim Rohn for that, because he really put an emphasis on the art of asking to me at a young age. And I think just having that curiosity and understanding, okay, like why is this deal getting told like no by
right.
certain investors, and saying like, okay, well, let me just ask the investor why he or she said no there. And then I learn from that, and I take notes, and then it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe I just need to get more no's, because every time I'm getting these no's, I'm learning valuable I'm getting valuable pieces of insight from these investors. And then, it adds up, boom, 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 boom. And you're probably like inside your head, you're like, you're right. Like this has been my life the last 2 years. I've been learning so much from every conversation I've been having from each investor. And I think it's great what you're doing, man. I'm honored to know you as a friend, and to see you um, work on your goal and to go after it. And for you to be humble enough to say, hey, some things are going good, some things aren't as easy as I thought. that's a credit to yourself, man. You know, I think that's a credit of the most successful people in the country is people who are able to say like, hey, you know, some things aren't as easy as I thought, but you know, we're taking steps each day to figure that out, you know?
100%. As you know, as long as it doesn't get stressful to the point where I start losing my
Maybe I've just
hair.
been talking to
Um,
myself the last couple of minutes.
no, no, you're still there. No, yeah, you've been awesome. And one final question, where can people go to find you if they want to learn more about public speaking, about your coaching, or if they just want to have a conversation? Hello? Can you hear me?
Well, this was if this is still going live, I appreciate you having me on, Brandon. This was great. And what I'm looking at right now is a screen that is frozen and mine is moving. So I wonder if the live stream, it's the opposite where mine is frozen and yours is not. But either way, appreciate you.